This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Okay, we're talking about live albums today, and I'm going to nominate what I think is a strong contender for the title of the greatest live rock album ever released. There are many great live rock albums. I'm thinking of, obviously, Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous, or Frampton Comes Alive, or Deep Purple's Made in Japan. But the thing with at least a couple of those albums that I've just mentioned is that there is a lot of debate about how live they actually are. There was a little bit of studio retouching done on certainly a couple of those albums, and the only thing that's in question is, how much of that was actually the case. But one great live rock album which proudly declared on the sleeve notes, I seem to remember, that everything you heard on the album was exactly what the crowd heard in the venue on the night, was this one, Alchemy by Dire Straits. Released in March 1984, it was basically a live compilation album of the best of the pre-Brothers in Arms period of the band, which basically means it was a best of the band, really, doesn't it? So let's talk about some of the tracks on there. The album starts with a little bit of a low-key track. You would expect, you're trying to make an impact and you go for one of the big hits right at the front of the album, maybe Sultans of Swing, for example, but they don't. They open up with Once Upon a Time in the West. And at the time, that was probably a brave decision, but I think in retrospect, it was a wise one, because I can't think of that album these days without thinking of that track right at the beginning. It just kind of eases you into the album. And then what have we got after that? Romeo and Juliet. Well, what can I tell you? This is a strong contender, I think, for the best love song ever written. And this live version on Alchemy, I think, is the definitive version of it. All of the songs on this album seem to benefit from being played live. The enthusiasm of the Hammersmith audience, which is where these tracks were recorded, it just seems to spur the band on. The reaction, that kind of two-way thing that's going between the band and the audience. They turn, what was a well-oiled and slick machine already into, I think, one of the best live performances ever captured on tape. And, a lot of people think that, Dire Straits, they have this kind of idea of Dire Straits being this humourless, dry, introspective band. Take a listen to this album. Take a watch of the video, which I had years ago on VHS and I've got on DVD now. And you can see that, everybody in that room, on stage and off, is having the time of their lives. They're having fun, basically. Then we move on to one of my favourite Dire Straits tunes. It often flies under the radar, this one, Espresso Love. And when you watch the video of this, you get a rare glimpse of Mark Knopfler using a plectrum on this song. I always wondered why that was the case. Why did he use it on that song, and did he use it on the studio version? And you start trying to kind of listen to the studio version. Can I hear if he's using a plectrum or not? But definitely that, you look at the footage and he's using one there. And this song really does kind of epitomise what's gone on all of these songs, really. It's evolved since the studio version was recorded. For instance, the backing vocals that come in on the outro chorus, when you go back and listen to the studio version that doesn't have those backing vocals on, it just seems like there's something missing. And that is a common theme throughout all of the cuts on this album. After that, we've got Private Investigations. Go and listen to the original studio recording of this, just out of interest, and remind yourself this was a #1 single in the UK. It was edited down from the full-length album version, but it was still nearly 6 minutes long. And can you imagine a song as atmospheric and complex and introspective as that getting to the #1 slot in the hit parade these days. Maybe that says something about the musical environment we live in. But as I said, it's a very atmospheric song, and just the atmosphere of the gig seems to really add to that. That whole kind of atmosphere, I can't think of another way of putting it, that they create on this song. It's a bit of a crowd pleaser as well. You can hear that the crowd are clapping along in certain sort of sections of the song, keeping time, but at other times when it drops to a whisper, you could hear a pin drop there, and again it's a whisper is louder than a shout, and that is perfectly evident on this song. You can tell that the crowd are as into this song as the band are that are playing it. Sultans of Swing, there's the next one. Again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout this little review here. It's the definitive version of the song. And like many of the songs on this album, you get a massively extended outro solo courtesy of Mark Knopfler. And boy, was he on form at this gig. I think it was actually recorded over a pair of gigs. And, he's really just playing out of his skin, I think. These long outro solos that crop up on many of these live versions, I always think it's a little bit like getting your favourite pizza and, getting 3 times the amount of topping on it. It's just, Mark Knopfler's guitar solos are, for me, the thing that, that's the selling point of all Dire Straits stuff for me. And, the fact that you're getting longer and better solos on all of these versions of the songs, plus, again, that kind of live energy vibe that's going along with them, just outstanding. Two Young Lovers, there's the next track. Now, this was the B-side, I believe, of that rock and roll single they put out just around about this time, the Twisting by the Pool. And, it's just Dire Straits having a blast playing some good time foot tapping rock and roll. Really good guitar solo as well from Hal Lindis, who was the rhythm guitarist in the band. Nice kind of nice of Mark actually to kind of let Hal have the odd solo from here and there on the album. Then Tunnel of Love. I mean, what can I tell you about this? The reason why I love this song in the first place, the original studio version, is because it mentions places and locations that are, kind of local to me. The Spanish City Fairground and, Cullercoats and Whitley Bay. And I'm thinking, I know these places. I used to go for days out there when I was a kid, and it was just exciting to hear these being sung about in a big successful song. And again, the outro solo on this. I am eventually, when I'm brave enough, going to get round to doing, a solo video on that solo. It is, I think it's a strong contender for the best guitar solo Mark Knopfler has ever played. And that is, quite an accolade. I absolutely love that solo. I got to the point where I could just about hum it at one point. It's just so melodic and tuneful and soulful. And, the way it kind of builds from a quiet, kind of beginnings up to a barnstorming finish. And then, Telegraph Road. One of the only songs on the album where he doesn't need to do an extended outro solo, because the outro solo on the studio version was, quite enough. Thank you very much. Basically, Telegraph Road came from the Love Over Gold album, as I'm sure you know, and, that was the first album really where you had, a song like Telegraph Road with that big long outro solo. And I just wondered if he thought, okay, well, that worked on that song. Maybe we should revisit some of the other songs like Tunnel of Love, Sultans of Swing and so on, and kind of give those a similar kind of outro solo treatment as well. And boy, did it work. But, Telegraph Road, it's an absolute cinematic epic of a song. And much as I love the Love Over Gold album and the original studio version of Telegraph Road, this version here just knocks it into a cocked hat. It is just absolutely, again, just the life and energy and atmosphere that comes with these atmospheric songs that the Straits were doing at the time. It just multiplies that feel by a factor of 1,000 for me. Moving on, solid rock. Again, another barnstorming performance. You know, Dire Straits, they do have their introspective side, I'm not going to deny that, but they're not all about kind of moody, introspective, navel-gazing sort of stuff. They can knock out a really ballsy rocker when the mood takes them as well. And it's a story about this song. Many years ago, saw kind of a local pub band round here, just doing rock covers, and the singer had a very, very kind of Paul Rodgers-ish voice, and the lineup was, you know, kind of bass, drums, couple of guitars, both Les Pauls, I seem to remember, and they did a version of this song, and it just made me think that could have been a Free song or a Bad Company song, or, you know, be interesting to hear what another northeastern Geordie lad, Brian Johnson, I beg your pardon, Brian Robertson. That's because I was talking about Thin Lizzy earlier. What Brian Johnson could do to a song like this. There's a collaboration I'd like to see, but, you know, fantastically, just up-tempo, foot-stomping rocker of a tune. And then the album closer, Going Home, Mark Knopfler's theme tune from the Local Hero movie. And I keep saying it, but I'm going to say it again, the absolutely definitive version of this particular piece of music. It's, you know, even other live versions, I think, don't measure up to this one that's on the Alchemy version. You've got Mark's guitar, Mel Collins' saxophone, just that atmospheric keyboard kind of thing, just holding it all together. And again, from, you know, a quiet kind of introspective beginning to an absolutely uplifting, joyful, rousing, melodic, tuneful, you know, kind of climax to the show. What more could you want? I've got to tell you that this album has that kind of rare feel to it for me of a band who are really, really tightly rehearsed, but not to the point where it sounds wooden and mechanical. They are so tightly rehearsed that you feel that they're just relaxing into the songs. It's effortless, and within that sort of relaxed, effortless kind of vibe that they've got, they can play around with it. They can colour outside the lines from time to time when the mood takes them. You know, they've got the freedom to improvise because that basic framework, that basic kind of template, that's the word I'm looking for, is so ingrained in there. And again, you know, just the sort of unspoken communication, the eye contact that's going on between the musicians on stage, where they know what each other are going to do even before they know themselves. You know, this album is called Alchemy, but, you know, it could equally have been called Telepathy for that very reason. It's all live. What you hear on the album is exactly what you hear on, or what the audience heard at the Hammersmith Odeon at those gigs. And it is just an absolute tour de force. It's a band at the peak of their powers. And, you know, I don't think there's ever, frankly, been a better live album recorded than this one. Maybe some will equal it, and this is just my opinion. Let me know what you think. You know, obviously, if you're not a Dire Straits fan, then you're not going to agree with a word that I've said. But, you know, I just think it's up there with, you know, any classic live album, and it still sounds as fresh and as vibrant and as energetic today. Where are we now? Nearly 40 years on. All those years on, it's still a fantastic, you know, energetic live album that I can never, ever tire of hearing. And as I say, strong contender for the greatest live album ever recorded. But you, let me know what you think in the comments section below, and I can rely upon you to do that. Anyway, folks, that's pretty much it for today. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you're not familiar with the album, I will, of course, link to it down in the description box below, so you can go and check it out for yourself, and maybe just remind yourself of how great it is if you haven't listened to it in a while. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time and listening to me ramble on a little bit about one of my favourite albums. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. See you next time.